You know the feeling. It's not quite panic. It's something quieter than that. A slow, sinking awareness that creeps in somewhere around Tuesday afternoon, 3 days before your paycheck hits. You open the app. You already know what you're going to see, but you open it anyway, and there it is. A number that's technically fine. You can make it to Friday, but that leaves no room, no margin, no breathing space. Just enough and nothing more. You close the app. You tell yourself it's okay. Payday is Friday. You've done this before. But here's the thing. You've done this before. That's the problem. Not once. Not twice. Every single month for months, maybe years, this same 3-day window arrives, and every time you survive it, you tell yourself, next month will be different. A new budget, a new intention, a fresh start once the money comes in. And then the money comes in, and then it goes. And then it's Tuesday again. This video is about that cycle. Not about blaming yourself for it. Not about telling you to make your own coffee or pack your lunch or cut out subscriptions. You've heard all of that. This is about why the cycle exists, psychologically, structurally, and what it actually takes to break it. My name is Arthur, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and why intelligent, hardworking people keep ending up in the same place every month despite genuinely wanting something different. If the 3-day feeling is something you recognize, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Let's start with something most people get wrong about this situation. Most people think the problem is that they don't earn enough. And look, income matters. Genuinely, there is a real floor below which no amount of budgeting or intention changes the math. But for the majority of people who experience the 3-day feeling, and research suggests this is not confined to low earners, it shows up reliably across income levels. The issue is not primarily income, it's something more structural, and understanding it changes how you approach the problem. The phenomenon is called financial anxiety, and it operates through a specific psychological mechanism called bandwidth depletion. This comes from research by Senthil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir, documented in their book, Scarcity, and it describes something genuinely counterintuitive. When you're focused on not having enough, your cognitive bandwidth, the mental resources available for decision-making, planning, and self-control, is partially consumed by that scarcity focus. The mental tax of worrying about money literally reduces the brain power available for the decisions that would help you worry less about money. It's a self-reinforcing loop. The stress of scarcity makes you less equipped to escape scarcity. This explains something a lot of people notice but can't quite articulate, that the last few days before payday are when you make your worst financial decisions. You're more likely to buy something impulsive because the planning part of your brain is occupied. You're more likely to skip the grocery run and order delivery because the friction of planning feels too high. You're more likely to put something on a credit card you'd normally pay cash for because the mental effort of calculating whether you can afford it is more than you can manage right now. The irony is profound. The moments when you most need good financial judgment are exactly the moments when scarcity has most degraded your capacity for it. Now, here's where it gets structural. Most people's financial lives are organized around a monthly income cycle, but their expenses don't actually arrive in a tidy monthly pattern. Rent or mortgage is monthly, but irregular expenses, a car repair, a medical bill, a birthday, a vet visit, an annual subscription, these arrive unpredictably, and they are almost never budgeted for. What happens is that every month feels roughly manageable until something unplanned arrives, which absorbs whatever buffer existed, which means the next month starts from a deficit, which makes the 3-day window tighter, which makes the decision-making worse, which makes the next irregular expense harder to absorb. Financial planners call these irregular expenses lumpy costs, and they note that most households dramatically underestimate how often they occur. Research from the J.P. Morgan Chase Institute on household financial data found that month-to-month income variation and spending variation are both far larger than people expect, and that the households with the lowest financial volatility are not necessarily the highest earners. They're the ones with the widest margins and the best systems for absorbing the lumps. The solution is not to eliminate lumpy costs. You can't. Life is lumpy. The solution is to pre-fund them. This is the core practical concept, and it's simple enough that people often dismiss it as obvious before actually doing it. You sit down once for about an hour and list every non-monthly expense you can anticipate in the next 12 months. Car registration, annual insurance, Christmas gifts, dentist, vacation, home maintenance, back-to-school costs. You add them up, you divide by 12, and that number becomes a new fixed monthly allocation that goes into a separate account, a sinking fund. The moment your paycheck arrives, the money is gone before you can spend it. It's there when the lumpy cost arrives, and the 3-day window no longer contains a surprise. This sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but here's why most people don't do it. The month they try it, They have to simultaneously fund the sinking fund and absorb whatever lumpy cost was already coming. It feels like a tight month. It feels like the system is making things worse, not better, and so they stop, and the cycle continues. The way through is to start smaller than you think necessary. Don't try to fully fund the sinking fund in month 1. Add $50. Add $75. Let it exist. Let the habit form. Let the next irregular expense be partially softened instead of fully absorbed by your regular budget. And over several months, increase the allocation as you can. The system compounds just like savings do. Each month, you're slightly more prepared than the last. But there's a second problem, and this one is purely psychological. Even people who do the math right, who have reasonable income, who nominally know where their money goes, they still often end up in the 3-day window because they've never done what I'm about to describe. They've never actually looked at the full picture, all at once, with honesty. Most people manage their money reactively. They check their balance before a purchase to see if they can afford it. They look at their bank app when they're already worried. They have a vague sense of what they spend, but they've never, in a single sitting, tracked every outgoing dollar for the last 3 months and added it up by category. Not a budget. Those are projections, often optimistic ones. An actual spending audit. What did you actually spend on food last month? On transportation? On entertainment? On things you'd categorize as miscellaneous if you were being generous, and I'm not sure if you were being honest. Most people who do this exercise find 2 things. First, the total is higher than they thought, sometimes dramatically higher. Second, there's at least one category, usually 2 or 3, where spending is significantly above what they'd have guessed and doesn't obviously correspond to genuine enjoyment or need. These are the friction-free spending zones, the places where money exits without you fully noticing because the transaction is easy, automatic, or small enough not to feel significant in the moment. Fixing those categories, specifically those categories rather than some vague commitment to spending less, is where actual behavior change happens. Because you're not fighting your entire spending pattern, you're closing 2 or 3 specific leaks. Now let's talk about the emotional layer, because the 3-day feeling isn't just a financial problem. There's a concept in behavioral economics called the scarcity mindset, and it does something beyond degrading your financial decisions. It affects how you see time. Research by Mullinathon and Shafir found that people experiencing financial scarcity tend to have a shorter time horizon. They overweight the present and underweight the future. The 3-day window makes Friday feel impossibly far away. It makes retirement completely abstract. It makes the future self, the one who would benefit from savings and smart decisions, feel like a stranger. This shorter time horizon is one of the reasons the cycle perpetuates itself. Every time scarcity arrives, it narrows your view. You focus on surviving Friday. You tell yourself you'll think about savings when the pressure lifts. And by the time the pressure lifts, by Friday, when the paycheck arrives, the relief of that moment triggers its own spending pattern. The money is here, the pressure is off, and a certain amount of release spending happens almost automatically. Some of it is entirely earned, but some of it is just the relief response, and it sets the stage for the next 3-day window. Breaking that release pattern is as important as building the sinking fund. What helps is a specific commitment, made in advance, about what happens the moment money arrives. Before the paycheck lands, you know exactly this much to savings, this much to the sinking fund, this much to essential fixed costs. What's left is what you actually have to spend, not what the account shows, which includes money already committed, what you actually have. That number, clearly established before the emotional relief response kicks in, is what governs the next month. The 3-day feeling doesn't go away overnight, but it can go away, not through willpower, not through sacrifice, through a system that reduces the uncertainty that creates the feeling in the first place. Friday is not the solution. A system that makes every day feel like Friday is. Let's talk about one more thing that makes this cycle so hard to exit: the shame layer. Financial stress is one of the most privately carried burdens in modern life. People talk openly about relationship problems, health struggles, career frustrations, but money stress, particularly the specific kind that says, I make a reasonable income and I still can't seem to get ahead, carries a particular shame that keeps it private, which keeps it unsolved, which keeps it recurring. Part of that shame comes from the cultural narrative that money is simple and your failure to manage it is a character flaw. Save more, spend less. Why is this hard? It's math, except it isn't math. It's psychology, it's neuroscience. It's a consumer economy specifically engineered to make spending frictionless and saving effortful. Subscription services auto-renew. One-click purchasing exists. Buy now, pay later is embedded into checkout. Every system surrounding you is optimized to move money out of your account with minimal resistance. The friction goes the other way. It takes effort to set up a sinking fund, to do a spending audit, to pre-commit your paycheck before the relief response can spend it. it. You are not failing at math. You are a human being living inside systems that are designed to work against your long-term financial interests while feeling completely natural. The 3-day feeling is not evidence of a character flaw. It is evidence that you're playing a game with rules that were written for someone else's benefit, without a strategy of your own. Getting a strategy is not complicated. You've heard the pieces in this video. The sinking fund, the spending audit, the pre-committed paycheck, the margin between income and spending that you protect before lifestyle can claim it. None of these require perfect discipline. They require a system, and systems don't rely on discipline. That's the point. The 3-day feeling is real, and it's exhausting, and it is not your permanent condition. You just need a plan that runs on structure, not willpower. Build the structure. Make it boring. Let boring be the goal. There's a useful reframe here that I want to leave you with. Most people think of a budget as a constraint, a cage, a list of things you're not allowed to do. That framing is part of why budgets fail. Nobody wants to live inside a cage, but the actual purpose of a financial plan is the opposite of a cage. It's a permission structure. When you know, with clarity, exactly how much you have available to spend freely, you can spend that amount without guilt, without anxiety, without the background hum of, can I afford this? That hum, that constant low-level financial anxiety, is what a good system eliminates, not by giving you more money, but by giving you more clarity. The 3-day window doesn't just feel tight financially, it feels tight mentally. The uncertainty of not knowing exactly where you stand is its own burden, and the antidote to uncertainty is not more money, it's more clarity. A clear picture of what's coming in, what's committed, what's going to the future, and what's genuinely available. When that clarity exists, the remaining money, even if it's not large, can be spent fully and freely because you know it's actually yours. That's the goal, not abundance, clarity. And clarity is something you can build regardless of what your paycheck says. The 3-day feeling is trying to tell you something, not that you're failing, not that you'll always be here. It's telling you that the system you're running doesn't have enough structure and that you are more than capable of building one. So build it. And then Friday will stop feeling like a rescue and start feeling like just another day.